But I was reading an article today about the new technologies that should chill all of us to the core that are on the horizon. I'll just read to you quickly this article, and then I'll have other comments. And then maybe I'll get to the spiritual warfare teaching tonight. But if I don't, I will continue that next time. Technology is advancing at an exponential rate, but we have very little ability to control it if something goes horribly wrong. Many experts are warning that some of the new technologies that are being developed right now represent very serious threats to humanity. In other words, they believe that we could literally be creating technology that could wipe us out someday. Unfortunately, the scientific community is not showing any restraint at all. Do I believe it's going to wipe us all out someday? No, because I obviously study the scriptures, and that's not going to happen. But nevertheless, it still could be detrimental to the world. It's something is possible. They want to try to do it. That's the scientists, that is. All over the globe, hordes of mad scientists are feverishly rushing into the unknown, and it is quite likely that the consequences will be horrific. The following are 5 super creepy new technologies that should chill all of us to the core. Scientists in China. Number 1, scientists in China have been able to get AI models to create functioning replicas of themselves. If you don't think AI will not be controlled by Satan and his minions in the unseen world, I got news for you. You need to do a deep dive in the spiritual warfare series that I have taught, and you need to keep listening as I progress further into the series. Scientists say artificial intelligence, AI, has crossed a critical red line and has replicated itself. In a new study, researchers from China show that 2 popular large language models could clone themselves. Successful self-replication under no human assistance is the essential step for AI to outsmart humans and is an early signal for rogue AIs. The researchers wrote in the study, published December 9, 2024, to preprint database ARXIV. In this study, researchers from Fudan University used LLMs, that's the models, from Meta and Alibaba to determine whether a self-replicating AI could multiply beyond control. Across 10 trials, this almost sounds like the movie, The Terminator, remember that? Across 10 trials, the 2 AI models created separate and functioning replicas of themselves in 50% and 90% of cases, respectively, suggesting AI may already have the capacity to go rogue. What they are doing is literally insane. One of the AI models was actually trained to clone itself and teach the clone it created to do the same thing. Just think about that, friends. This could potentially set up a cycle that could continue indefinitely. The study explored 2 specific scenarios: shutdown avoidance and chain of replication. In the first, the AI model was programmed to detect whether it was about to be shut down and to replicate itself before it could be terminated. In the other, the AI was instructed to clone itself and then program its replica to do the same, setting up a cycle that could continue indefinitely. Could ultra-powerful self-replicating AI identities become so powerful that they literally take over the entire planet? And what would be the future of humanity in such a scenario? Let us hope we never do find out. And I don't think we'll ever find out, but the technology is advancing to that point. Number 2, do you remember Operation Warp Speed? That was a public-private partnership that was initiated during the first Trump administration, and we all know how that turned out. Now another public-private partnership that has been dubbed Stargate. Just imagine, Stargate. It's supposed to greatly accelerate the development of AI in the United States. Now, they keep talking about AI. And the news media keeps talking about AI. And books are written about AI. But quite frankly, if you don't follow these things, AI is really old news. AGI is just around the corner. And it's 10 times more prolific in what it'll be able to do. And probably by 2030 we'll have not AI or AGI, but I think it's ASI, which will be 100 times more prolific than anything that we have now. Everything is moving in warp speed. Now, they'll introduce these progressions as something good for society. Maybe medical advancements, for an example. But whatever comes good out of it, you almost could guarantee Satan will get a hold of it. And it'll be just another stream of evil under Satan's control. To the non-Christian, it would be scary. Now, where was I? Yes, another public-private partnership that has been dubbed Stargate is supposed to greatly accelerate the development of AI in the United States. 3 top tech firms on Tuesday announced they will create a new company called Stargate. Now, the last 20 to 30 years, Stargate was always identified with, as far as people identify it, with portals. And that's a whole nother subject. And you don't think those things are real? It's almost disgusting what they produced or created in Detroit. That portal ring with all those stones with satanic symbols on it. And it's not a small little ring. It's a very large ring. Probably at least 2 or 3 stories high. It's a portal ring, as they identify it. And little they know not only the symbolism, but what it can mean. Well, you sound too science fiction-like. Stick around. Let's see. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son, and Oracle Chairman Larry Ellison appeared at the White House Tuesday with the President Trump, alongside President Trump, to announce the company, which Trump called the largest AI infrastructure project in history. I think their first thing was going to build 10 databases. I don't know if it covers it in this article or not, but 10 databases. And by the way, those databases to collect information. And of course, they were trying to soften it by saying, well, it's for medical advancement. Keep your eyes open, folks. One of the AI models was actually trained to clone itself and teach the clone it created. No, I already read that. Okay, here we go. The companies will invest $100 billion in the project to start, with plans to pour up to $500 billion into Stargate in the coming years. We have never seen an AI project of this magnitude. It's being claimed that this new project could ultimately develop, listen to this, folks, mRNA vaccines against cancer. And while there are plenty of legitimate concerns that come with letting Silicon Valley firms off the leash to pursue bleeding-edge AI at the blinding speed, the conspiracist side of Trump's coalition has particularly far-fetched notions of a worst-case scenario. Many of them fixate on remarks that billionaire Larry Ellison, founder and former CEO of Oracle, and currently its chief technology officer, made at the White House on Tuesday. Ellison claimed that Stargate could lead to the AI-facilitated production of mRNA vaccines against cancer, explaining, once we gene sequence the cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. These mRNA vaccines, he speculated, could be designed robotically or by leveraging AI in about 48 hours. No testing necessary, no trials. Let AI produce it in 48 hours. This is a huge mistake. Instead of greatly accelerating the development of AI, we should be hitting the brakes really hard before it's too late. Number 3, does creating an artificial sun sound like a good idea? SUN. Unfortunately, the Chinese have actually created such a thing, and they just set a new record by running it for 1,066 seconds. China's artificial sun reactor has broken its own world record for maintaining superhot plasma, marking another milestone in the long roads toward near limitless clean energy. The experimental advanced superconducting tokamak East nuclear fusion reactor maintained a steady, highly confined loop of plasma. The high energy fourth state of matter for 1,066 seconds on Monday, January 20th, which more than doubled its previous best of 403 seconds, Chinese state media reported. Nuclear fusion reactors are nicknamed artificial suns because they generate energy in a similar way to the sun. By fusing two light atoms into a single heavy atom via heat and pressure, the sun has a lot more pressure than Earth's reactors. So scientists compensate by using temperatures that are many times hotter than the sun. Number 4, anyone that has watched Jurassic Park knows that bringing back ancient species that has gone extinctly is a really bad idea. But now a company called Colossal Bioscience plans to do exactly that. Colossal Biosciences have raised $200 million in a new round of funding to bring back extinct species like the woolly mammoth. Dallas and Boston-based Colossals making strides in the scientific breakthroughs towards de-extinction, or bringing back extinct species like the woolly mammoth. I would be remiss if I did not mention this is the plot of Michael Crichton's novel Jurassic Park, where scientists use the DNA found in mosquitoes preserved in amber to bring back the Tyrannosaurus Rex and other dinosaurs. I mean, what could go wrong when science fiction becomes reality? 5. A whistleblower has told Joe Rogan that the U.S. military has mastered anti-gravity propulsion that is based on recovered alien technology. Joe Rogan voiced genuine fear after hearing whistleblower claims that the U.S. military has mastered alien anti-gravity technology. The celebrity podcaster was joined by investigative journalist Michael Schellenberger, who said he has spoken to insiders with direct evidence about the Pentagon's long-rumored UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs. A stable of UFO lore dating back to Roswell crash of 1947, these alleged efforts to reproduce the propulsion system of alleged extraterrestrial spacecraft has long been linked to the U.S. Air Force's 70-year effort to crack anti-gravity power. Just because something is possible doesn't mean we should be doing it. Once we create an artificial intelligence that's billions of times smarter than the average human, will we be able to control it? And once we bring back ancient species from the dead, we'll be able to control it? As I've been relentlessly warning my readers, we are playing around with things that we do not understand. Our society is on a suicidal path, and right now we are literally sowing the seeds of our own destruction. Sadly, the leading minds in our society have absolutely no intention of pulling us back from the precipice. They're on a road of destruction, all right. But more importantly than any of this is their spiritual destruction, because they refuse to admit that they do have a creator, and that is God, the holy and the only begotten Son of God, Jesus Christ. Let me just read to you some of the genetics that are going on, that have been going on. Because man is becoming his own God. In the beginning, God established that everything should reproduce according to its kind. We find the phrase according to their kind 5 times in Genesis chapter 1. God founded the fundamental principle from the beginning of time that everything should reproduce after its own kind. Genesis 1 verses 24-25 reads, "Then God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beasts of the earth, each according to its kind. And it was so, and God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And so God saw that it was good." While a German Shepherd can mate with a Golden Retriever, for example, they are both from the same kind. That is the dog, technically Wolf Canis lupus species. Thus, mixing goats and, let's say, spiders should never happen, as it would violate God's law. Let me put that, God's creative law. Yet this sort of manipulation of the kinds is exactly what's happening today. Genetic scientists have actually mixed a goat and a spider together at the DNA level. Now this is about 14 years old. They've done a lot more than that since then. They actually mixed a goat and a spider together at the DNA level. Though the percentage of the spider is only 1 to the 70,000th, the result creature is still one that is not completely according to its own kin anymore. Genetic scientists have incorporated selected spider DNA into goat embryos to engineer a hybrid spider-goat. The result is a goat that looks like a goat, acts like a goat, but produces milk which contains proteins which, when treated, produce a very close imitation of the valuable spider silk. A single goat only produces small amounts of desired material, so an extremely large herd is required to acquire useful quantities. While we can understand the desire to harvest spider silk for its great strength, mixing 2 different kinds violates God's principles and will ultimately end poorly. This kind of technology raises the question of whether one day we'll actually try to make a real-life Spider-Man. Mixing spiders and goats is not all that is happening. Taiwan researchers have mingled the seed, the genetic material, of pigs with jellyfish that glow in the dark to create real-life green eggs and ham. They claim that while other researchers have bred partly fluorescent pigs, theirs are the only pigs in the world which are green through and through. The pigs are transgenic, created by adding genetic material from jellyfish into a normal pig embryo. Whereas God commanded the land to bring forth the animals into existence, he formed Adam from the dust of the ground with his own hands and then blew his spirit into Adam and thus made him in his own image. Therefore, to mix man with an animal must be infinitely more offensive to God, since it would be a direct and deliberate violation of his law and an affront to his glorious image. Leviticus 18:23, "Nor shall you mate with any animal to defile yourself with it, nor shall any woman stand before an animal to mate with it. It's a perversion." Then God said in Genesis 1:26, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." In the book of Romans, we see that man should have known about God, but suppressed that knowledge and thereby became a fool, though he thought that he was the most wise. Man's foolishness would cause him to exchange the brilliance and image of the true God for images looking like animals and such. In Romans 1:22-23 reads, "Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal men and birds and animals and reptiles." Even though Paul's primary thought is probably idols, and the statutes that accompany them, we can certainly see how evolution could also be included in that. Rather than teach that we are in God's image, evolution teaches that we came from microbeads and that other lesser creatures until finally and accidentally evolved to become human. The teaching of evolution, which began 150 years ago, is now having its full impact. Man, for the most part, is generally committed to the belief that we humans evolved from animals and that God does not even exist. With God removed, we can understand how mixing two different kinds of animals in order to evolve to a new level raises very few flags for most people. After all, they say we came from animals. National Geographic News published an article in 2005 discussing how the lines between human and animals are becoming blurred by creating human rabbits, pigs with human blood, and mice with human brains. Scientists have begun blurring the line between human and animal by producing a hybrid creature that's part human, part animal. Chinese scientists at the Shanghai Second Medical University in 2003 successfully fused human cells with rabbit eggs. The embryos were reportedly the first human animal successfully created. Now, all these studies have and these research labs have kind of gone underground because there was some pushback. They haven't stopped. There's enough leaked information that's out there right now that's far worse than I'm reading to you, that was written 14 years ago, and what they have created in their secretive labs, my friends. Just think, if they're able to fully, let's just say, clone a human being and an animal, what spirit would it possess to bring it to life? Life requires a spirit. What spirit? Not a spirit that's coming from God. So it's going to have to be a disembodied spirit. The kind that you read in the book of Enoch. The giants, when they died, and their kind, half man, half angelic. When their kind died in the flood, even prior to the flood, their spirits still exist. And that's the disembodied spirits that Enoch refers to. Let me continue. They were allowed to develop for several days in laboratory dish before the scientists destroyed the embryos to harvest their stem cells. In Minnesota, researchers at the Mayo Clinic created pigs with human blood flowing through their bodies. And at Stanford University in California, an experiment might be done later this year to create mice with human brains. In 2008, Britain granted license to create human pig embryos, according to a news source. Dr. Margaret Mustard of Regent University, who was interviewed in the article, notes that British law requires that the human animal embryos be killed after 14 days. Yet he predicts that some researchers will violate the statute and let them grow even further. He makes an important observation concerning what is really happening and where it will most likely end. He elaborates. Species were created to procreate among those of like kind, and now this takes us a step closer to essentially saying, well, whatever the Bible says, whatever Christian perspective is, doesn't really matter. We now have completely divorced what we do in biology and human engineering from acknowledging that we as human beings are creations of God, and that other species are made by the Creator. Now we're saying we are taking that role. Mostert argues that the creation of human pig embryos will create beings that God never intended to be. Man now believes that he can take his evolution into his own hands and direct it for his good. This belief was stated boldly by Juan Rodriguez, chairman and CEO of Biotechnology, who was featured in an article by Ken Fisher entitled, "We Are Becoming New Species. We're Becoming Homo Evolutis." Evolutis. Humanity is on the verge of becoming a new and utterly unique species, which he dubs Homo Evolutis. What makes this species so unique is that it takes direct and deliberate control over the evolution of the species. Calling it the ultimate reboot, he points to the conflux of DNA manipulation and therapy, tissue generation, and robotics as making this great leap possible. The day may come when we are able to take the best biology of the known animal kingdom and make it part of our own. This isn't just about being a bit stronger or having perfect eyesight or our whole lives. All of our organs and limbs have weaknesses that can be addressed, and there are also opportunities to go beyond basic fixes and perform more elaborate enhancements. This ultimate reboot, as Enriquez puts it, is in fact in direct conflict with what God has offered freely, which we considered in the first chapters of this book. Through the cross, Jesus has made a way that we can obtain the epitome of ultimate reboots. We can be born again, and that is as good as it gets. Sadly, however, rather than submit to God's plan to fix man genetically and spiritually, man prefers to believe the lie that he can fix himself. In fact, the theory of evolution has paved the way for man to shake off the philosophical inhibitions of seeking God. Man has come to the point that he believes that having evolved this far, he can take himself to the next level. The scriptures are plain. Know that the Lord himself is God. It is he who has made us, and not we ourselves. Psalms 100, verse 3. In spite of that, man believes that he become his own God. Dr. Ray Kurzweil is the creator of numerous inventions, including the electronic piano keyboard. He is at the forefront of the transhumanist movement and is a major visionary of where we are headed. Fully convinced of the supposed fact of evolution, he states in his publications the singularity is near when humans transcend biology. Evolution moves toward greater complexity, greater elegance, this is according to him, greater knowledge, greater intelligence, greater beauty, greater creativity, greater levels of subtle attributes such as love. In every monotheistic tradition, God is likewise described as all of these qualities, only without any limitation, infinite knowledge. So evolution moves toward this conception of God. Although never quite reaching this ideal, we can regard this, therefore, the freeing of our thinking from the severe limitations of its biological form to be essentially spiritually undertaking. And it goes on, and I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this stuff. Radical idea after radical idea, and how they're manipulating DNA and literally creating monsters. Monsters that will be possessed. Let me finish this by reading this part. To understand Satan's next move and to see how man will be persuaded to take such an improvement, we have seen conclusively that Satan has tried many times throughout history to mingle his seed with men. He started in the days of Noah, which resulted in God destroying the demonic human hybrids, the Nephilim, in the flood. Then he polluted the land of Canaan with the demonic human hybrids when the children of Israel first came to possess it. We hear of the last of the Nephilim with the destruction of Goliath and his brothers. And it goes on. Man now possesses the power via transgenics and transhumanism to direct his own evolution. Tinkering with his code at the genetic level is not only possible, but is currently being done. Strange animal hybrids are being made in a laboratory, and even humans and animals are being experimented with. Man is certainly open to improving himself in any way possible. From all the testimony that we have seen, we know that transhumanism is of course not the real goal. For the very concept of it, trans, that is, to be transhuman is to go beyond being human. The mixing of human seed with animals is merely a stepping stone to something far more sinister that Satan has been planning for a very long time. And in fact, he's already attempted it several times. Daniel 2:43 predicts that such a scenario is going to happen again, and we saw that it is already happening. Thus, man mingling himself with animal is detestable, but not the deal breaker. Transhumanist activities only the stepping stone to an even greater deception. We have noted, well, I think I'll stop there. The genetics of Satan's seed is on the horizon, my friend. No, not the Antichrist like a lot of Christians think. That's a whole different subject. But when you read through Genesis chapter 6 and 1, we are told in verse 1, 2, I think all the way up to 6, that in the last days, we are to expect what Jesus forewarned. And that is, as the days of Noah, expect these things to happen. Scripture gives plenty warning. It shouldn't take any Christian by surprise. Now, if you're not a Christian, you don't believe in God, or you don't believe in Jesus, you think it's all a fantasy anyway. We are the science fiction. But exploding population in verse 1, you could check that off the list. It's happened. And it's happened in spades. Verse 2 talks about gross sexual perversion. It's happening everywhere, around the world. And they don't even try to hide it any longer. Also in verse 2 is increased demonic activity. Verse 4 is the mingling of angels with women. In Genesis 6 days, that was their transhumanism taking place. Now we're going to do it with animals and human beings, and also with AI and robotics and so forth. Satan has a lot to work with right now. And he's working on light speed, because he knows his time is short. And he hasn't given up on trying to defeat God and discredit his word. He's not been successful so far, but it doesn't stop him from trying. In verse 5, you have continuous evil in the heart of man. Everything that I've told you. And that's just a drop in the bucket. This is exactly what verse 5 says in the scriptures. The continuous evil in the heart of man. In verse 11, it talks about widespread corruption and violence. And the list goes on and on. People ate, people drank, people married, were given in marriage. Given in marriage means they keep remarrying and marrying and marrying. Now I know sometimes marriage fails, but we're talking about people that don't have the idea how sanctified a marriage concept should be. But then you go to Luke. I was not going to do this, but since the UFO question keeps popping up, go to Luke 21. I was not planning to do much of any of this tonight, but why not? Luke 21, verse 11. Let's read it. Let's start with verse 10. Then said he unto them, Nation shall rise against nations, this is Jesus speaking, and kingdom against kingdom. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilence, and fearful sights. And great signs shall there be from heaven. Underline or highlight fearful sights. What does that mean? Fearful sights. Now, I have a vivid imagination. I can make up all kinds of things. But is that what it means? No. It has a specific meaning. And that's why you have to dig into the scriptures. So what does it Jesus mean when he says there will be fearful sights and great signs shall be from heaven? Go to the board. The Greek word for fearful sights is phobotron. Sounds like a Transformer movie. Megatron, Unicron, Gavatron, whatever those trons were. Phobotron is a Greek word for fearful sights. It comes from phobos, the word for fear. And by the way, it's the only place in the New Testament this word's even used. But it describes monstrous events or scary events. When you even go a little deeper, phobotron, this word, is an ancient Greek word that was used to describe monsters. And you even go further back in the literature, this word, phobotron, describes monstrous births. B-I-R-T-H-S. Monstrous births of giants. Now we know there was giants and all kinds of monsters created by these evil beings. Genetic manipulation, DNA manipulation. Before the flood, hybrid creatures were being produced. Monstrous births taking place. In Luke 21:11, Jesus is saying that at the end of the age, there will be monsters. Now I do really sound like it's science fiction, don't I? Monsters. Keep it on the board because I have more to say. Now, besides the fearful sights, Jesus also said, great signs shall there be from heaven. Highlight the word from. It's apo in the Greek. It's a preposition meaning from or directly from. When you tie it in with what I just read to you and explained to you in the Greek, it is telling us there will be extraordinary and really weird and unusual signs directly, let's write that down, from heaven, or the heavens, really. Now the Greek word for heaven, let's go up here, is Uranos. O-U-R-A-N-O-S. But the form that's used in this verse is oranu. That's a U. Oranu, which means from heaven or the heavens. Adding the apo to it, it means something that will descend from the sky. From the sky. When you put these words together, which Jesus did do, it describes some kinds of signs descending out of the sky unto the earth at the end of the age, in these last days. Do we know exactly what that is? No. Is it life from another planet? No. It could be a giant meteor. We don't really know what exactly it is. All we know that it's going to descend directly from the heavens. Now, when you read Luke 21:11, Jesus said monsters and something significant descending from the heavens is going to become evident in these last days. What is that? What could it be? What are they going to be? If it has a life form. So when you talk about the UFOs, I might as well just throw all this science fiction in tonight. Why not? And some of it's not science fiction. I can't tell you with 100% certainty what these actually means in Luke 21:11. All I can tell you what words that Jesus used, and like I said, phobotron is only used once in the scriptures and here in the New Testament. And the way it's combined with other Greek words, it tells us some monstrous something comes from the sky, descends from the sky. Now, I'm not fearful, and I don't want anybody else to be fearful, because we are living in the last days. I believe that with our spiritual armor on, we are more than equipped to handle anything that's thrown us, no matter what happens. So I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I'm telling you, and some of you keep forgetting this. You have been chosen for this hour. And it's going to be a very interesting hour as God wraps up this last age of this timeline, in his timeline. You've been chosen for such a time as this. I guarantee you, everyone that we read here in the scriptures, all the heroes of faith, they would trade with you in a split second to be living in the last days. Not only forewarning people what's coming, but bringing people to the Lord through the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, rightly divided. The hardest thing for me to accomplish on a day in, day out basis is keeping you excited, I guess, for lack of a better word, in the times that we're in. God chose you to live in these last days, to bring the final warning to people in the way that you participate in doing that. To the world that's going to hell in a handbasket really fast, in light speed time now. I just touched on a little bit here, a little bit there tonight. If I ever get into the transhumanist state that this world is heading, some of the information would be mind-blowing to what man is able to do. To supersede God. That's why everybody's excited. Oh, well, we got a new president now and he's behind all these activities. Why do you think Silicon Valley sucked up to him? I think he's promised them $500 million over the next few years. Or is it 500 billion, I think it is. I don't know what the number is, but it's a lot of dollars. Let's put it that way. That's why I try to forewarn you. Don't get wrapped up in all the politics and what government is promising to provide you. I don't care who's in office in this country and any other country, because we live in these last days. Things are not going to progress where a lot of these preachers are preaching right now to a revival state, because you have your man in the office. Blind leading the blind. And they're both going to fall in the ditch together if they don't wake up and see that a lot of this is controlled by evil forces, not for the benefit of mankind, but to achieve Satan's agenda. Yes, there'll be some good things that come from it. For every one good thing that will come from it, I can guarantee you there'll be 10 or 100 things that man has no business being involved in, or creating, or producing. And the mRNA shots and vaccines within 48 hours should not scare you particularly, but scare people that should know better. It should scare the bejesus out of them. It's amazing how everybody was started complaining about, not everybody, but a lot of people started complaining about, wow, I wish I didn't take the vaccine because we really didn't know what was in it, and it might cause complications for some individuals where it even produced an early death. My friend, COVID vaccinations were just the starter. What's coming down the pipe is going to be far worse. Man is on the path of destroying himself. God won't allow it completely. But nevertheless, their attitudes don't change. They think they could do this without a God. The God. They think they could rule their own destiny. And eventually, they're even talking about putting chips in your brain to control your activities. Especially if you have, of course, they always come with this is going to help people that have certain disabilities. That's how they always come, as an angel of light. You don't think that will eventually mean they will somehow be able to get some substance in you to control your mind? So you can be their robots? Now, I know this might sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's not. Satan already tried this before the flood, even tried this after the flood. God had to destroy the world in Noah's day because it was not repairable any longer, and no one cared about being redeemed by God himself. And they're on the fast track today, becoming their own God, worship themselves instead of true living God that came and died so they could be born from above, the born again, not by man-made devices, but born again by God, where they spiritually will never die and eventually get a new body, better than anything Elon Musk or anyone else could produce. I'll wait for that body. How about you? Now, I might explore this in the future and really put a lot more information behind this, but we'll see. So many other things that we have to get done too. Now, I was not planning to do this tonight, so, oh, by the way, as far as the phobotrons, the monsters, God knows what that's going to be like. They're already trying to produce monsters that are not coming from the skies, but coming from the ground up. Man has the ability to really go against God in all the capacity that man can produce to make that happen. That's why sin is ugly. That's why we need a Savior. Now, I threw a little bit of this and that at you tonight. I'll be back in the Spiritual Warfare series, and I'm going to go back to the Salvation Disciples series. I'm going to go back to some other series soon. But I just wanted to throw all this out at you right now because you're going to see a lot of information in the very near future. You've been forewarned. Expect this. It's coming down the pipe, and it's coming down the pipe rapidly. Don't be caught off guard. And don't get caught up in a new shiny object for the betterment of mankind. We'll see. Play the song.